As Adora held her father's hands, walking towards the church door, the door wide open, and the sound of the trumpet loud. Dun, 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 dun. As Adora, holding her father's hands, walking down the aisle, to her greatest surprise, no one was sitting in the church. It was just her family member that was there. The role dedicated to the bride's family was totally empty. None of her colleagues or friends attended her wedding. Welcome to Tales with Zika. Join me as we find out why no one attended Adora's wedding. In a beautiful village in Anambra State, there lived a man named Nnamdi. Nnamdi is a businessman who deals with importing and exporting of electronic materials. Nnamdi is also a philanthropist. He was so generous, and he had a son named Opara. He is married to a beautiful lady named Nkechi, who is a lawyer. One fateful evening, after they had finished having their meal, Nkechi collapsed and was rushed to the clinic. On arrival to the clinic, he was pronounced dead. Mr. Nnamdi, who cared about everyone around him, he knew all his neighbors, knew their name, knew their kids. Nnamdi loved people, but after Nkechi passed, Nnamdi closed his door and restricted his son's movements. He restricted his son from involving with anyone. He dropped his son by himself at school and picked his son every single day. Opara, who noticed that his father had changed, and asked his father, "Papa, what suddenly happened? After Mama passed on, I noticed that you stopped caring about the villagers and stopped caring about everyone." Nnamdi looked at him and told him, "The days are evil. You don't know what happened to your mom. No one could tell what had happened to her. Even the hospital could not even tell what happened to her. How can a young, vibrant woman finish having her dinner and suddenly slump and die?" So Nnamdi told his son, "It is high time we reduce our cycle. No one is allowed to come into our house, and we are not allowed to visit anyone. We have to live like this because you don't know what people have in mind against you. Being good doesn't mean you won't have haters. So be very, very careful." Opara grew up with the mindset the father has embedded in him, making him have very little cycle. He literally just traded with two business partners. He did not want to involve himself with things. All he did was to go to church, go to work, and come back, visiting his father whenever he had time. After some years, Opara got married to a beautiful lady named Oluchi. Oluchi is a renowned teacher in Anambra State. They lived in a very big mansion as Opara was very wealthy. And Opara made Oluchi to limit her friends too, and also her cycle, explaining to Oluchi the necessity of doing so. He even told Oluchi how he lost his mother. So Oluchi found pity in him and did all Opara had told her to do because she genuinely loved him, and Opara was a loving and caring husband. So she had to understand his reasons for doing so. After few months, they gave birth to their first daughter, Adora, who was a very beautiful girl. But as time went on, they had a total of 3 daughters: Adora, Munachimso, and Zikora. Munachimso and Zikora, being the 2 last daughters, were sociable. They loved to have friends. They loved to hang around with their classmates, but they couldn't do so because their mother was a teacher in their school, and their mother always kept a close eye on them, observing everything they did. So Munachim and Zikora were very, very limited to hanging out with their friends. Whereas Adora being the closest to her father, Adora obeyed all the rules. Her only friend, being Ifeinwa, was her father's business partner's daughter. So she was permitted to have just Ifeinwa as a friend. As they grew up, Munachim and Zikora became a medical doctor, whereas Adora became an accountant. Munachim and Zikora soon got married immediately after their university, and their marriage was done in their father's living room. When their husbands came for the wedding, they were shocked and asked, Mr. Opara, why is our wedding being done in a tiny way? Mr. Opara explained to the husbands that this is how he wants his daughter's wedding to be done, and he would love that his decision is being respected. The husbands of Munachi and Zikora had to obey, knowing fully well that there was nothing they could do about it. Adora was the closest to her father and always loved to visit her parents whenever she was free at work. Whenever she visits her sister, she was so shocked that they had various friends that always come to their houses. She will always remind them of their father's words. Be careful. Limit your cycle. The days are evil. You don't want what happened to our grandmother to happen to you. You don't even know these people you're bringing into your home. Do you trust them? What if they are terrible? What if they have something against you at heart? Please be careful. You know what the elder sees sitting down. Even if you climb the highest mountain, you won't see it. For Papa to tell us to be very careful and hold on to one another, he knows what he's doing. Munachim and Zikora will always tell her, Sister, we've heard you, but you know they are our patients, they are our colleagues. You don't expect us to just tell them not to visit us. Adora will tell them, yes, whatsoever conversation you have with them, end it in your place of work, end it in your church, don't bring them to your houses. But Munachim and Zikora never listened for one day. They were very, very sociable, so they wanted to live life the way they chose and not according to the rules of their father. Adora is the manager in her bank. She was so ambitious and had worked her way to become the manager. She was a very, very nice person, but she always kept to herself. At her 28 years of age, the only wedding she had attended was that of her sisters and her best friend Ifeinwa. She doesn't attend anybody's wedding, even from her place of work or the church. Adora never attended any of her colleagues' functions, their weddings, their birthdays, their child's dedication, or even their sent forth. Adora always had one excuse or the other not to attend. Even amongst themselves at the offices, when they do their monthly contribution to buy foodstuffs in bulk so as to share during the December period, such as crayfish, stockfish, and so on, Adora never ever agreed to join the contribution. She always exempts herself, not because she's the manager, because she has this mindset that her father has put into her never to get involved with anyone. Be yourself, go to church, go to work, carry out your day-to-day activities. That was all Adora did. All Adora did was to go to church, go to her place of work, go to her parents' house, and she was so comfortable with her lifestyle. If she has to visit anyone aside her parents, it was to be Ifeinwa. And she just did that for minimum of 1 hour 30 minutes. She doesn't last more than that in Ifeinwa's house. Ifeinwa always advised her to increase her cycle, telling her that there are needs. Time will come when you need those people. But Adora will always tell them, I'm a very nice person. my colleagues can tell of that. So when I need them, they will come up, but I don't have to gum body with them. That's the word she always use. Must I gum body with somebody? Anyone will always tell her, no problem, do as you please, but just know that I'm not trying to say I'm not okay being your friend, but it's necessary that you also get other people involved in your life. One day, a young wealthy man came to the bank to cash out some money and carry out a transaction and had some issues. So the cashier referred him to Adora, who is the manager of the branch. After Adora helped carry out the transaction effectively and effortlessly, Mr. Chijioke was so glad and he took her number so as to keep in touch. But over time, they communicated and Mr. Chijioke told her he was into her. She also liked him, so she accepted and they started dating. And after a period of 6 months, Mr. Chijioke decided to meet Adora's parents. When he met Mr. and Mrs. Opara, they were so excited that their first daughter Adora had found someone who she genuinely loved and someone she was so comfortable around. They could see her face smiling and so excited about Chijioke. So they accepted the union and blessed them. Mr. Chijioke, who is very, very wealthy, wanted an elaborate wedding. He communicated with the Oparas, telling them that he has a very big family and he wants his wedding to be outstanding. Mr. and Mrs. Opara were so excited and told him that they don't have any issues with that. He also communicated with Adora. Adora also accepted to having an elaborate wedding. Mr. Opara, who at old age started relating with people unknown to Adora. Whenever he went to church and during the Sunday school, he gradually started relating to people and accepting them to visit his home. He even used his house as one of the Sunday school center, communicating and going for his town's meeting like every other man does. Adora bought beautiful maroon lace as her ashrebi material to share for her colleagues and for her choristers in church, as Adora was the assistant choir mistress. So she was so excited when she gave the lace to her colleagues at work. They were so amazed. The material stood out. It was speaking money. It was speaking wealth. They spoke highly about the material that she shared for them, and she even told them not to bother to pay for it, that all they had to do was to sew and attend the wedding. They looked so excited. After she had given to her church people and to her work people, she thought to herself, oh, they are going to come since I didn't ask them to pay for the material. Little did she know that something was going to happen. On the wedding day, when Adora had finished dressing with her beautiful wedding gown, her white shoe, her beautiful crown on her head, and the church door was opened with the trumpets sounding pa pam para. The doors of the church was wide open. Adora looked around while her father held her hand and walked her through the aisle. To her greatest surprise, nobody was sitting on the path for the bride's family. It was just her family members and Ifeanyi's family. On the part of the groom's family, being Chijioke, it was filled up with colorful attire, people smiling and whispering as they could see that no one came for the bride. Adora felt a beam of embarrassment. She didn't believe that none of her colleagues came. Even her choir people refused to attend her wedding. The only person that came for her wedding from her church was her choir master. She felt really bad. As her father handed her hands over to her husband to be Mr. Chijioke, After exchanging their vows, Mr. Chijioke, who looked at her and raised his eyebrow, pointing to the direction where her family were sitting, trying to ask her why no one came for her, but she tried to shake it off. After they were done with the church, while they were taking the photos, Chijioke asked Adora, how come no one came for you? Or is it that your people are waiting to meet you at the reception ground? Adora smiled and said, probably, yes, they are. I think so. Chijioke looked at her and said, I hope so. While they entered the reception hall, the same thing that happened in the church reoccurred. No one was sitting on the bright side. It was empty. It was just that part situated for the groom that was filled up with people. Adora was so embarrassed. She didn't know what to do. Throughout the wedding, she felt down. She felt sad. She then understood how not involving herself with other people has cost her, as no one attended her wedding. While they were in honeymoon, Chijioke, who spoke about what had happened during the wedding, he asked his wife, Adora, my love, I really want to understand what happened. Why didn't any of your colleagues from the bank or even your church attend your wedding? What really happened? Is it that you don't relate with people well? But Adora looked at him and told him, I'm very, very sorry. I know I brought you shame during our wedding, but I would like to explain why I feel most of them did not come. So Adora started explaining herself to her husband. While growing up, my parents never allowed us to hang around with people. They felt that the days were evil and everyone was a suspect. So after I grew up, I hardly attended anything. I don't go for anyone's wedding. The only thing I did was to go to church, go to work, and come back to my house. Chijioke looked at her. He was confused. What kind of a mindset is that? He asked Adora. Yeah, that is a Keiki mindset. How can you say the days are evil and you go to work? You should sit in your house now if the days are evil. That is a very, very poor mindset, my wife, Adora. You can't use what happened to your grandmother to judge the present days. I'm not trying to tell you to involve yourself with everybody. I'm just trying to make you understand that you are held accountable for any decision or anything you do in life. You cannot use what your father said to pilot your life. Can you see how it brought you shame? No one came for your wedding. The bride side was totally empty. I want you to think about it. And I don't want you to carry on this mindset throughout our wedding and pass it on to the children. Relate with people, but be very careful with who you relate with. Handpick your friends. The way you're friends with Ifeanyi, you can increase the number. Everybody don't necessarily have to be your friend, but at the same time, communicate with people, attend their wedding, attend their functions. That way they will feel that you have them at heart. In life, what you give is what you get. You don't expect people to show up for you, but you don't show up for them when they need you. Money does not solve everything. Time is valuable. Time is money. The time someone would have left what the person had to do to attend your wedding is very important to the person. And if you feel you can't attend another person's wedding, the person won't obviously attend yours. Adora felt really bad, tears rushing down her eyes. Chijioke held her and hugged her tightly and told her, I am not here to demean you or make you feel bad, but I want you to see past what had happened and become a better person. Adora nodded in agreement. In her heart, she told herself, I have to work towards becoming a better person. When the honeymoon was over, Adora went to her place of work, and to her greatest surprise, her office was filled up with various gifts stacked to the brim. Her colleagues from work had dropped the gifts for her, and she just decided to ask her colleagues, "Why didn't you attend my wedding?" Smiling sheepishly at them. They all had different excuses to give. One of the colleagues named Chiwendu looked at her and said, "Sorry, I was taking care of my children. My husband went somewhere that day. Sorry." Oh, another one named Titi looked at her and said, "My dear manager, I forgot that it was that Saturday. I'm serious, I forgot. Why wouldn't I come with that fine ashebi wey you give us? I'm sorry, I forgot it was just that Saturday." Adora nodded in agreement, but she knew that the reasons they gave weren't genuine. But after that moment, Adora worked towards becoming a better person. She gradually started attending her colleagues' functions, gradually started increasing her cycle, but was very, very careful with the people she related with. She still had strong suspicions about people, very, very strong suspicions, but she made sure that she was very, very careful with who she related with. Even after giving birth, she still tried to teach her children to be very, very careful. It is okay to have friends, but you don't have to have quantum. You don't have to pack the whole world and call them friends. Be careful of who you relate with, she always told them. This is the end of the story. It's your favorite storyteller, Zika. But before I leave you for the day, I will want to give you some advice, and I will also want to ask some questions. My advice here is that I don't blame Mr. Nnamdi for his decision, but at the same time, we should also understand that being careful is necessary, but taking it overboard is when it becomes an issue. We can understand for a fact that his wife collapsed and there was nothing that could be done about it. But having to pass that mindset to how many generations, destroying the relationship they would have built, is really bad. I also want to ask, what do you think about the life of Nnamdi, Opara, and Adora? Nnamdi was the grandfather who carried the mindset and passed on to his generation, making Adora hold on to it and not willing to associate with anyone. But we should also remember, worry man go say, scratch my back, I scratch your back. If you make out time for people, people will make out time for you. Limiting your cycle is very necessary. You don't have to attend everybody's function, but making out time for people is very necessary. Your colleagues, your friends, your classmates, you don't even know how far these people can come for you much later in life. You don't have to be uptight about everything. Thank you very much for listening to the story of the day. Please do not forget to like, subscribe, turn on the notification bell to get more interesting stories like this. Till we meet again in our next story. Bye for now.